Hey, my name's Carmichael, and I'm new to being a dungeon master, so I've been playing with my friends off camera, so that way I can start my own campaign or my own series here on the channel. I don't only talk about the mistakes or homebrewery stuff that I have, and today I have a big mistake that I want to go over. Hopefully it will correct that choice down the road, or maybe even help you if you're interested. First, let's go over the last session. The party went off to a nearby goblin cave, took out all the goblins and the orcs hiding inside in the hopes to find their dwarven employer, but instead they found a human fighter, and then they rested for the night. I started doing this session with a cool dream sequence for my warlock, for my druid, for my cleric. This was me trying to spice it up. I like the idea that when the characters leveled up to level 2, they kind of had a moment, but I feel like I didn't do it right. I only did it for my magic users, not my rogue or my fighter, and I felt really bad. Not everyone got to have something. I should have done it for everyone. I did have stuff planned for the fighter and the rogue in the town because they're murder hobos. And in a future session episode, I'll talk about how I learned you shouldn't do that, because then you're relying on the players to find things versus handing and giving it to them. But anyway, they wake up. Technically, they just needed to get the NPC to the town, get him healed up with a long rest and help from another cleric, a more powerful cleric, and they could bump into the bandits in town, moving the plot forward. But to make it a bit fun, I gave the fighter a broken leg. The players took that to a point where they needed a strong person to carry the NPC, and no one thought about asking the fighter to do so, so they split the party. The rogue and the druid ran off through the snow to the town to find someone strong enough to carry the person, while the warlock, cleric, and fighter, who could have probably carried him back to town, stayed there and debated about cutting off his leg. In theory, this is a fun idea, but I messed it up, especially because it's over Zoom and we're not sharing the space as a group of friends at a table. I had to practice cutting back and forth between the two groups. That sounds like a lot of work, it's not. And I thought it worked out well. I gave the druid and the rogue a small taste of the bandits, which helped the plot move forward, but I never did anything with the other group. I should have sent like an easy monster their way or something. Basically, I learned if I do split the party, cutting back and forth, the stakes weren't raised for both groups, only one. One group had an active problem and combat encounter, while the other just had to debate about cutting off a leg. The group that stayed back should have had like defend and protect moment. A monster from outside found the cave to stay warm, and they had to make sure that monster didn't eat the NPC, and then they would have a sense of urgency versus, oh, it's our turn. Well, what's his leg look like? Nothing. Next group. We're fighting bandits. We're trying to just get somebody out of town. So it's way more fun to cut over there. And it's not as fun to watch somebody over Zoom as it is to like cheer your friend on at the table either. So it's really like cut to a group that have a high stakes clock ticking thing, and you cut to the group that has no ticking clock, and the stakes are we may or may not have to cut off his leg. It's like more social and less personal. Like if my character was in danger, it'd be a big thing. So I think raising the stakes for both is important. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna try to keep that in mind next time. Another thing I noticed is when I'm cutting back and forth, I'm kind of doing it in real time. So it's like I cut back almost essentially where they left off, versus while we were away, you guys traveled through point A to point B. Now we're at point B, we're doing stuff. Cut back while they had the same A to B thing, cut back. Okay, now you're already back onto the trail. We skipped the boring traveling bit. There's no lingering or having time. The point for cutting back and forth, is, even in movies and TV shows, is to keep it snappy, keep it moving. If the team was together, they could spend a long time traveling and it'd be totally fine. So getting the NPC to a cleric, spending the time to consistently take care of him while the players are off and about, was something I wanted to teach the players. I wasn't comfortable saying no. I really needed to fix that about me as a DM. I need to confidently know when's the appropriate time to cut. Be aggressive about saying, all right, we are cutting back to them. All right, we are cutting back to them. I don't normally say no in real life, so it gets kind of hard. I feel harsh, but it clearly is something that needs to happen. But anyway, eventually Rogue and Druid made it back to the cave. They brought the carpenter half-orc to help carry the NPC out, and they got the human back to the inn. They got to a cleric, I think it was like 3-4 days for healing. Basically 1d4 days. At the end of the day, I think I failed to communicate the broken leg situation. I failed to communicate vital information. I failed to make it fun and exciting to cut back and forth between the two groups. I've experienced it before too. When you have to sit back on Zoom and just watch your friends play, it's not fun. And if we're all getting together for a Sunday game, like we kind of all want to have fun. So my big takeaways are, if I'm going to split up the party, all the groups need to have high stakes. Like, oh, you have to stay back and watch this person. Well, there might be a monster and you have to deal with that monster. I got to avoid TPKs because the party, the players themselves need to trust me as the DM that I'm not going to just kill their characters every time they choose to split the party. Otherwise, they will never split the party. And I think splitting the party and cutting back and forth is a fun game dynamic, if done correctly. I need to find the right moments to cut back and forth. I think I need to not cut literally linearly. Like I should cut fat in time. And then if one group is in an encounter, the other group needs to be in an encounter as well. Half the table should not just sit and watch someone else play D&D. So it's like I should do 1 round of combat over here, cut to them. 1 round of combat, and back and forth until the encounters end. And then it just feels like the characters are split apart, but the players are still playing the same game together. And then finally, I should just, as an NPC, suggest that the fighter carry them. I should just do that. So those were my big lessons learned from kind of a big mistake session where I rewarded some players for being magical, others that weren't. And that was just because I was like, the non-magic players will get their fun. No, I'm giving away things. Everyone needs to be getting a gift. No coal in the stockings. There should be a present under the tree every time. I need to balance out combat for both. It was a lot. I wouldn't have thought about how to make splitting the party more interesting or more fun without splitting the party and messing up, especially on Zoom. Just make it fun for everyone. It's so hard to make that connection over a delay and audio compression stuff. But I hope I do better next time, and I'm excited for the next session where the party is going to deal with the bandits inside town. And boy, do I have a lot planned for that. So I'll see you next time, and don't forget, use your THAC0.